You ever meet someone who seems perfectly normal until they cross a line and then suddenly the universe hands you the weirdest kind of enemy? Well, that was me last summer when I met Keran. And no, not Karen in the generic internet meme sense. This was the real deal. HOA president, rule enforcer, clipboard-wielding vigilante of suburban life. She had one mission, to make sure my boat was banned from our community docks, and she wasn't subtle about it. It all started with an email. One of those formal, passive-aggressive HOA notices that sounds polite but screams, "We're about to ruin your life." According to Keran, my boat, yes, my modest, perfectly legal vessel, violated aesthetic standards and community harmony. I read it twice, then laughed. I thought, wow, someone really has nothing better to do. But here's the kicker. Keran didn't know who she was dealing with. You see, my boat was just the tip of the iceberg. I owned the entire marina, every dock, every slip, every boat ramp. And technically, she had no authority over me. In fact, the marina itself wasn't even under HOA jurisdiction. But Keran? She didn't see it that way. She saw a shiny, intimidating boat in her little neighborhood and decided it was her personal mission to stop it. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I played along for a while. I responded to her emails with the utmost politeness, smiling in all my headshots while mentally preparing the ultimate payback. But Keran didn't stop. She started sending letters, knocking on doors, talking to neighbors like she was the sheriff of Marina conduct. Meanwhile, I was quietly gathering evidence, documenting every overstep, every rule she misapplied, and of course, every time she underestimated me. By the time she called me personally to demand that my boat be removed, I was ready. I could feel it in the air, the classic showdown energy. On one side, the furious HOA queen with her stack of rule books. On the other, me, armed with documents, legal rights, and a marina full of boats she couldn't touch. And then, the moment of truth arrived. Keran leaned across the table, finger pointed, voice trembling with righteous indignation, and said the words I'd been waiting for. "I'm telling you, your boat cannot stay here." I smiled, leaned back, and calmly replied, "Actually, you have no authority over this marina at all." Her face went pale, like someone just told her the sky wasn't blue. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about a boat anymore. It was about ego, control, and the thrill of watching someone slowly realize they've been playing checkers while you're playing chess. Little did Keran know, the next moves would be hilarious, and a tiny bit messy. After our first face-to-face confrontation, I thought maybe Keran would back off. I mean, who ignores the fact that someone owns the entire marina? Apparently, Keran isn't that kind of person. Instead, she doubled down. The very next morning, I started receiving a flurry of messages. Not emails this time. Real physical letters stuffed under my marina office door. Each one carefully handwritten, full of bold underlines. Exclamation points and phrases like, "This is an outrage," and "You must comply immediately." I couldn't help but laugh. I called my assistant over and said, "Look, Keran is putting in overtime just to annoy me, and she's failing spectacularly." But then things escalated faster than I expected. Keran began showing up at the marina. Not in a "let's talk about the rules" way, more like a full-blown inspection team. Clipboard in hand, taking photos of every boat, every dock, every single detail she could argue about. She strutted around like she owned the place, stopping at my boat, glaring as if sheer willpower could make it disappear. And then came the HOA gossip machine. Suddenly, every neighbor seemed to be calling me, asking if my boat really violated some imaginary rule they hadn't even read. Keran had turned the community against me, or at least she tried to. But here's where the twist comes in. Owning the marina meant I had allies in all the right places. My dock managers, security team, even the local council member, all quietly amused by Keran's meltdown. I decided it was time to escalate, but in a very cinematic way. One evening, while Keran was planning her next visit, I organized a little marina welcome party. Boats were perfectly lined. Lights sparkling, music faintly playing in the background. I knew she'd come by to check on things. When she did, she was ready to lecture, but instead, she walked into a scene so ridiculous it left her speechless. Boaters waving, families laughing. Kids throwing water balloons, not a single violation in sight. Keran froze. Her eyes darted around like a squirrel caught in headlights. I could almost see the gears turning. Why isn't this working? She realized the Marina was literally buzzing with activity under my control, and no HOA rule could touch it. She had finally stumbled into a reality where her authority had limits. By the end of that day, Keran's calm, polished exterior had cracked just a little. Her usual confident tone was gone, replaced with a flustered, almost desperate energy. And that's when I knew the real fun was just beginning. Keran didn't know how to quit, and I didn't plan to let her. Next, things got personal. And by personal, I mean absurd. Keran's daughter entered the scene, thinking she could stir up trouble by taking selfies with my animals. That's when I realized this wasn't just about boats anymore. It was about karma. Public humiliation and a little bit of manure. Just when I thought Keran couldn't get any more outrageous, her daughter decided to jump into the mix. Let's call her Little Keran, because her energy was practically a miniature version of her. Mother's entitled, nosy, and determined to make everyone else's life slightly miserable. One sunny afternoon, I was walking through the pasture by the Marina, checking on the cows I keep there. Nothing fancy, just a small herd that helps keep the land neat and calm. Peaceful, until Little Keran arrived. She had her phone out taking selfies with my cows. Not casually like someone enjoying the scenery, no. She was attempting full-on Instagram influencer vibes. Duck lips, dramatic poses, the works. She thought this was harmless fun. She clearly hadn't read the fine print about who owns the animals. The land, and all the cameras strategically placed around the pasture. I watched her for a minute, pretending not to notice. Then a mischievous idea hit me. Little Keran was invading my space, making herself the star of a photo she didn't deserve. Time for a little friendly intervention. I grabbed the manure loader, a perfectly safe industrial-sized tractor I used to clean the barn, and drove it slowly into the background of her shots. Not threatening, just enough to steal the spotlight. The first selfie came out perfectly. Little Keran's perfect pout, my cows blissfully chewing hay, and me in the background, steering a tractor with a grin. She didn't notice at first, lost in her self-absorbed world. But when she looked at the screen, her jaw dropped, eyes wide, phone trembling. The perfect Instagram moment ruined by a big, muddy tractor in the background. I didn't stop there. Every selfie, every TikTok attempt, every boomerang was photobombed. Sometimes subtle, sometimes outrageous. One picture had me waving from the loader like a king in a parade. Another had a cow in mid-sneeze perfectly timed behind her. Little Keran started panicking, running from shot to shot, trying to reposition her phone, but it was too late. Each photo now screamed, "This pasture belongs to me, and your selfies are secondary." The best part? Keran saw the aftermath. Her daughter came home, phone in hand, showing her every ruined selfie. Keran's face went from smug to horrified in seconds. For once, she was powerless. No HOA rule could fix this. No lecture could undo the chaos. And in that moment, I realized that this little game of photobombing wasn't just about humiliation. It was the perfect, hilarious, public way to show who really owned the space. By the end of the day, Keran's daughter had learned one key lesson. Don't mess with someone who controls both the land and the cameras. And Keran? Well, Keran had learned that trying to assert authority over me was starting to backfire spectacularly. Little did she know, the next move would involve the community, a board meeting, and a twist that would leave everyone's jaws on the floor. By the time the next HOA board meeting rolled around, Keran was already on edge. She'd lost her composure over my boat, and her daughter's selfie fiasco had only added fuel to the fire. Keran had spent weeks strategizing, hoping to rally neighbors against me, but instead she had accidentally turned the whole thing into a comedy of errors. She didn't realize the final act was about to be staged, and she would be the star. The meeting began like any other, with Keran confidently striding in, clipboard in hand, ready to lecture about community rules, boat aesthetics, and proper marina behavior. I entered behind her, calm and collected, carrying a small stack of papers labeled ownership and legal rights. The room, filled with curious neighbors, went quiet as I set the documents on the table. The atmosphere felt like the calm before a hurricane. Keran started her speech, outlining her concerns about my boat and how it supposedly violated community standards. She pointed at me, expecting dramatic gasps or nods of agreement. But there were only confused glances. Every neighbor already knew the truth. They had seen the marina thriving, boats perfectly docked, and the pasture selfies disaster. Keran's accusations were falling flat. Then I began my presentation. Calmly, clearly, I walked the board through the documents proving that I owned the entire marina. Every slip dock and boat ramp was legally mine. I explained that the HOA had no jurisdiction over the property and that any attempt to enforce rules here would be, legally speaking, meaningless. I even added a few choice photos of little Keran's photobombed selfies. Perfect timing. Perfect impact. By the time I finished, Keran's confidence had evaporated. She was no longer the formidable HOA president, but a flustered figure, realizing she had spent months trying to boss someone who literally outranked her in authority. The neighbors murmured, some laughing quietly, others shaking their heads at her overreach. I leaned back, letting the moment sink in. Keran opened her mouth to respond, but stopped mid-sentence. There was nothing left to argue. I had delivered the ultimate mic drop moment. The rule enforcer defeated by her own assumptions, a boat intact, a pasture unbothered, and a daughter thoroughly humiliated on social media. After the meeting, Keran never mentioned my boat again. She tried to maintain dignity, but everyone knew the truth. And as for me, I drove back to the marina, the sun setting over the docks, cows grazing peacefully, and boats bobbing gently in the water. The battle was over, and I had won, not with anger or confrontation, but with a perfect blend of patience, strategy, and a little playful chaos. Sometimes all it takes is knowing your rights and having a manure loader ready for photobombing. The legend of Keran versus the marina would live on, a story neighbors told for months, and I'd enjoy every retelling. Enjoying this wild story of HOA drama and marina chaos? Hit that subscribe button to catch more epic neighborhood showdowns. If you laughed or gasped at Keran's antics, give this video a like and drop a comment below. What would you have done if someone tried to ban your boat?